If you stay away from problems and noise, turn off the light and put on an earphone, you will have done yourself a favor. Let's begin. The story of the mermaid is a tale of wonder and adventure, full of excitement and magic. It is a story that will take you to the depths of the ocean and beyond, where you will meet creatures you never imagined and experience things you never thought possible. Our story begins with a young mermaid who longed to explore the world beyond her underwater kingdom. She was curious and adventurous, and always seeking new experiences. One day, she swam too far from home and found herself in unfamiliar waters. As she gazed up at the surface, she saw something she had never seen before: humans. Fascinated by these strange creatures, the mermaid watched from afar as they went about their daily lives. She observed their customs, their language, and their behavior, and found herself drawn to their world. One day, as she was swimming near the shore, she caught sight of a young girl named Lily. Lily was playing on the beach, and the mermaid was captivated by her joy and innocence. She watched as Lily laughed and played, and felt a strange longing in her heart. Unable to resist her curiosity, the mermaid swam closer to the shore and approached Lily. At first, Lily was frightened by the sight of the mermaid, but the two soon became fast friends. They spent hours playing together, sharing stories and learning from each other. Through Lily, the mermaid learned more about the human world and the wonders it held. She heard stories of far-off lands and amazing adventures, and longed to explore them for herself. But she also learned of the dangers that lurked on the surface, of ships that hunted and killed sea creatures, and of the pollution and destruction that threatened the ocean. Determined to make a difference, the mermaid decided to take action. She used her magical powers to clean up the ocean and worked to protect her underwater home from harm. And she vowed to use her knowledge and strength to help both the human and the mermaid worlds, and to promote peace and understanding between them. Little did she know, however, that her newfound... In the coming chapters of our story, you will join the mermaid on a journey of discovery and adventure as she sets out to save her kingdom and protect those she loves. You will encounter fierce sea monsters, treacherous currents, and unexpected allies as you explore the depths of the ocean and beyond. So come, dive into the world of the mermaid and experience a tale unlike any other. A tale of courage, friendship, and the power of love to conquer even the greatest of challenges. Chapter 1. A Curious Mermaid. The mermaid had always been curious about the world beyond her underwater kingdom. She had heard stories of far-off lands and amazing creatures, and longed to see them for herself. But her parents had always warned her about the dangers of the surface, of ships that hunted and killed sea creatures, and of the pollution and destruction that threatened the ocean. Still, the mermaid couldn't help but wonder what lay beyond the world she knew. So one day, she decided to venture out and explore. She swam past the coral reefs, past the schools of colorful fish, and into the deep, dark waters beyond. As she swam, the mermaid felt a thrill of excitement and fear. She knew that she was taking a risk, but she couldn't resist the call of adventure. She had always been curious about the human world and wondered what it would be like to see it for herself. After several hours of swimming, the mermaid saw something in the distance. It was a ship, sailing towards her with its massive sails billowing in the wind. The mermaid felt a twinge of fear. She had heard stories of ships that hunted and killed sea creatures, and she knew she had to be careful. As the ship drew closer, the mermaid swam towards it, her heart pounding in her chest. She hid beneath the waves, watching as the ship passed overhead. She saw the humans on board, their faces turned towards the horizon, and she felt a pang of envy. The mermaid watched as the ship sailed away into the distance, and then she realized something. She could follow it. She could see the world beyond her kingdom and experience all the wonders it held. And so, she set off in pursuit of the ship, determined to see where it would lead her. For several days, the mermaid followed the ship, swimming through strong currents and treacherous waters. She saw amazing sights, schools of dolphins leaping through the waves, giant whales breaching the surface, and glittering schools of fish that seemed to stretch on forever. And then, one day, she saw something she had never seen before. It was a human girl, playing on the beach. The mermaid watched from afar as the girl laughed and played, and felt a strange longing in her heart. She had never seen a human up close before, and she was fascinated by this strange creature. She watched as the girl built sandcastles and chased after seagulls, and felt a deep connection to her. As the day drew to a close, the mermaid swam back to her underwater kingdom, her heart full of wonder and excitement. She couldn't wait to see what other wonders the world had in store for her, and she knew that her adventure had only just begun. Chapter 2. A Risky Decision. The mermaid spent the next few days thinking about the human girl she had seen on the beach. She couldn't shake the feeling that there was something special about her, something that drew her in and made her want to see more. So, one night, the mermaid made a decision. She would leave her underwater kingdom and venture onto land to see the human world for herself. It was a risky decision, and she knew that she could be putting herself in danger. But the call of adventure was too strong, and she couldn't resist the urge to explore. The mermaid swam to the surface, taking a deep breath before diving onto the sand. It was a strange sensation to be out of the water. She felt light and free, but also vulnerable and exposed. Still, she pressed on, making her way up the beach towards the human girl's house. She hid behind rocks and bushes, watching as humans went about their daily lives. She saw children playing in the streets and adults going about their work. She saw cars and buildings and all sorts of strange and wonderful things that she had never seen before. As the sun began to set, the mermaid crept closer to the human girl's house. She watched from a safe distance, waiting for her moment to make her move. And then she saw the girl. She was sitting on the porch, looking out over the ocean. The mermaid felt a rush of excitement. This was her chance. She crept closer, trying to be as quiet as possible. But as she got closer, the girl turned and saw her. For a moment, the two of them just stared at each other, the girl in shock and the mermaid in wonder. And then, the girl screamed. It was a piercing sound, and it echoed through the night. The mermaid panicked, not knowing what to do. She turned to run, but the girl's father had heard the commotion and was running towards them, a net in his hand. The mermaid tried to swim back into the ocean, but the net was too strong. She was trapped, struggling against the cords as the man dragged her towards the shore. It was a terrifying experience, and the mermaid was sure that she was going to die. But then, something unexpected happened. The girl spoke up. "Daddy, stop!" she cried. "Don't hurt her. She's not a monster, she's just curious." The man hesitated, looking at his daughter in surprise. And then, slowly, he lowered the net. The mermaid was free. For a moment, there was silence. The mermaid and the girl just stared at each other, not knowing what to say. And then, the mermaid spoke. "Thank you," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Thank you for saving me." The girl smiled. "You're welcome," she said. "I'm Lila. What's your name?" And that was the beginning of a beautiful friendship. Chapter 3. Exploring the Human World. Over the next few days, Lila and the mermaid spent all their time together. They explored the beach, the town, and even ventured into the nearby forest. The mermaid was fascinated by everything she saw, the way the leaves rustled in the wind, the way the sunlight filtered through the trees, and the sounds of animals she had never heard before. For her part, Lila was amazed by the mermaid's curiosity and wonder. She had never met anyone like her before, someone who saw the world with such fresh eyes, as if everything was new and exciting. Together, they laughed and played, splashing in the ocean and chasing after seagulls. They talked about their lives and their hopes and dreams, and the mermaid learned more and more about the human world. One day, they went into town to explore. The mermaid had never seen so many people in one place before, and she was both excited and overwhelmed by the crowds. As they walked down the main street, Lila pointed out all the shops and stores. They passed by a bookstore, and the mermaid's eyes widened with wonder. She had never seen so many books in one place before. She could spend hours just looking at the covers and titles. Lila noticed her interest and smiled. "Do you want to go in?" she asked. The mermaid hesitated. She had never been inside a human building before, and she wasn't sure if it was safe. But Lila could see her uncertainty and took her by the hand. "It's okay," she said. "I'll be with you." They walked into the store, and the mermaid felt like she had entered a magical world. The shelves were lined with books of every size and shape, and the air was thick with the smell of ink and paper. Lila led her to the children's section, where they sat on the floor and looked at pictures together. The mermaid was fascinated by the stories and the characters. She had never heard anything like them before. As they were leaving the store, Lila pointed out a poster on the wall. "There's going to be a fair next week," she said. "Do you want to go?" The mermaid's eyes widened with excitement. A fair sounded like the most wonderful thing in the world. And so, the two of them made plans to go to the fair. The mermaid couldn't wait to see what other wonders the human world had to offer. Chapter 4. The Fair. The day of the fair arrived, and Lila and the mermaid set off early in the morning to make the most of the day. The mermaid was dressed in a flowing dress that Lila had borrowed from her mother, and her hair was tied back with a ribbon. As they walked through the town, they could hear the sounds of music and laughter in the distance. The mermaid's heart raced with excitement. She had never been to a fair before, and she didn't know what to expect. As they approached the fairgrounds, the noise and the crowds grew louder. They could see people milling about, playing games, and eating all sorts of delicious foods. The mermaid's senses were overwhelmed by the sights, sounds, and smells of the fair. Lila took her by the hand and led her through the crowds, pointing out all the different attractions. They saw acrobats performing amazing feats of strength and balance, clowns making people laugh, and musicians playing lively tunes. The mermaid's eyes widened with wonder as she saw all the different colors and shapes around her. She was particularly fascinated by the stalls selling sweets and treats. She had never seen anything like them before. Lila bought them both some candy floss, and they sat on a bench to eat it. The mermaid's face lit up as she tasted the sweet, sticky treat. "This is amazing," she said. As they were walking around, they came across a stall selling toys. The mermaid's eyes lit up as she saw a set of brightly colored juggling balls. "Can we get those?" she asked Lila. Lila smiled and nodded, and they bought the juggling balls. The mermaid was eager to try them out, so they found a quiet corner of the fairgrounds and started tossing them back and forth. At first, the mermaid struggled to get the hang of it, but with Lila's patient guidance, she soon started to get the hang of it. They played together for hours, tossing the balls back and forth and laughing and joking. As the day wore on, the crowds started to thin out. Lila looked at her watch and realized that it was getting late. "We should head back," she said. "It's getting dark." The mermaid looked around at all the sights and sounds of the fair and felt a pang of sadness. She didn't want the day to end. She had never had so much fun in her life. But she took Lila's hand, and they made their way back through the town towards the beach. As they walked, the mermaid felt a sense of gratitude and joy in her heart. She was so grateful to have met Lila and to have experienced the wonders of the human world. Chapter 5. The Storm. As Lila and the mermaid made their way back to the beach, they could see dark clouds gathering on the horizon. A storm was coming. Lila's heart sank as she realized that they were still quite far from home. She knew that they needed to hurry if they were going to make it back before the storm hit. But the mermaid was distracted by the changing colors of the sky. She had never seen anything like it before. The way the light danced across the clouds was both beautiful and terrifying. As they walked, the wind started to pick up. Lila tried to shield the mermaid from the worst of it, but it was no use. The wind was too strong. Suddenly, the rain started to fall in heavy drops, drenching them both. Lila tried to shield the mermaid with her coat, but it was no use. They were both getting soaked to the bone. The mermaid started to shiver with cold, and Lila knew that they needed to find shelter. She looked around, but there was nothing in sight. Just then, a bolt of lightning struck a nearby tree, and the mermaid screamed. Lila knew that they were in serious danger. They needed to find shelter, and fast. She spotted a small cave in the side of a nearby cliff, and she grabbed the mermaid's hand and led her towards it. The cave was small and damp, but it was better than being out in the storm. They huddled together in the cave, shivering and wet. The mermaid was terrified. She had never experienced anything like this before. But Lila was calm. She had grown up by the sea, and she knew how to weather a storm. She held the mermaid close and whispered soothing words in her ear. As the storm raged on outside, Lila and the mermaid huddled together in the cave, waiting for it to pass. The mermaid was still scared, but she felt safe in Lila's arms. Eventually, the storm began to subside. The rain stopped falling and the wind died down. Lila looked out of the cave and saw that the sun was starting to set. "We should go," she said, helping the mermaid to her feet. "We need to get home before it gets dark." The mermaid nodded, still shivering. They made their way back to the beach, their clothes soaked through and their hair plastered to their heads. But despite the cold and the rain, the mermaid felt a sense of warmth in her heart. She was grateful to be alive and grateful to have Lila by her side. Chapter 6. The Search for the Pearl. As the days passed, Lila and the mermaid grew closer. They spent their days exploring the coast and playing in the waves. Lila taught the mermaid how to fish, and the mermaid showed Lila how to sing with the dolphins. One day, as they were playing in the shallows, the mermaid spotted something glittering on the ocean floor. "Look!" she cried, pointing. "What is that?" Lila waded over to where the mermaid was pointing and saw that there was a small pearl lying on the sand. "It's beautiful," said Lila. "We should take it to the market and sell it." But the mermaid had a different idea. "No," she said. "I want to keep it. It's special." Lila could see how much the pearl meant to the mermaid, so she agreed to help her keep it safe. They decided to hide the pearl in a small cave they had discovered on the beach. They carefully placed the pearl in a small crevice in the wall, where it would be safe from the tide and from any other creatures that might try to take it. But as the days passed, the mermaid became increasingly worried about the safety of the pearl. She would often slip away from Lila to check on it, and she grew more and more paranoid about anyone else discovering its hiding place. Lila tried to reassure her that everything was going to be okay, but the mermaid couldn't shake her fears. She was afraid that someone was going to steal the pearl and that it would be lost forever. One night, the mermaid had a dream that the pearl was gone. She woke up in a cold sweat, her heart racing with fear. "We have to check on the pearl," she said urgently. "Right now." Lila groggily got out of bed and followed the mermaid to the beach. The moon was full and bright, casting long shadows across the sand. As they approached the cave where the pearl was hidden, they could see that something was wrong. The sand around the cave had been disturbed, and there were footprints leading away from it. The mermaid's heart sank as she realized that someone had found the pearl. She started to cry, her tears mixing with the salty spray of the sea. Lila put her arm around the mermaid and led her back to their hut. They sat together in silence, mourning the loss of the precious pearl. But as the night wore on, Lila began to hatch a plan. She knew that the pearl meant everything to the mermaid, and she was determined to get it back. Chapter 6. The Search for the Pearl. As the days passed, Lila and the mermaid grew closer. They spent their days exploring the coast and playing in the waves. Lila taught the mermaid how to fish, and the mermaid showed Lila how to sing with the dolphins. One day, as they were playing in the shallows, the mermaid spotted something glittering on the ocean floor. "Look!" she cried, pointing. "What is that?" Lila waded over to where the mermaid was pointing and saw that there was a small pearl lying on the sand. "It's beautiful," said Lila. We should take it to the market and sell it." But the mermaid had a different idea. "No," she said. "I want to keep it. It's special." Lila could see how much the pearl meant to the mermaid, so she agreed to help her keep it safe. They decided to hide the pearl in a small cave they had discovered on the beach. They carefully placed the pearl in a small crevice in the wall, where it would be safe from the tide and from any other creatures that might try to take it. But as the days passed, the mermaid became increasingly worried about the safety of the pearl. She would often slip away from Lila to check on it, and she grew more and more paranoid about anyone else discovering its hiding place. Lila tried to reassure her that everything was going to be okay, but the mermaid couldn't shake her fears. She was afraid that someone was going to steal the pearl and that it would be lost forever. One night, the mermaid had a dream that the pearl was gone. She woke up in a cold sweat, her heart racing with fear. "We have to check on the pearl," she said urgently. "Right now." Lila groggily got out of bed and followed the mermaid to the beach. The moon was full and bright, casting long shadows across the sand. As they approached the cave where the pearl was hidden, they could see that something was wrong. The sand around the cave had been disturbed, and there were footprints leading away from it. The mermaid's heart sank as she realized that someone had found the pearl. She started to cry, her tears mixing with the salty spray of the sea. Lila put her arm around the mermaid and led her back to their hut. They sat together in silence, mourning the loss of the precious pearl. But as the night wore on, Lila began to hatch a plan. She knew that the pearl meant everything to the mermaid, and she was determined to get it back. "We're going to find that pearl," she said, her eyes blazing with determination, "no matter what it takes." Chapter 7. The Quest to Retrieve the Pearl. Lila knew that they had to act quickly if they were going to retrieve the stolen pearl. She spent the morning gathering information, talking to the other villagers and asking if anyone had seen anything suspicious. After a few hours of searching, Lila finally found a clue. One of the fishermen had spotted a strange boat offshore, heading in the direction of a nearby island. Lila knew that this was their best lead. She immediately set off with the mermaid, determined to catch up with the boat and retrieve the pearl. They sailed for hours, battling against the wind and the waves. But as they approached the island, they could see the boat in the distance, anchored just off the shore. Lila and the mermaid quietly swam towards the boat, using the cover of darkness to avoid being seen. They climbed aboard and began searching for the pearl. It didn't take long for them to find it. The pearl was sitting on a small table in the captain's quarters, surrounded by other stolen treasures. Lila carefully picked up the pearl and turned to leave, but just as they were about to make their escape, the captain burst into the room. "What are you doing here?" he bellowed, brandishing a rusty cutlass. Lila stood her ground, determined not to let the captain scare her. "We're taking back what's rightfully ours," she said firmly, holding up the pearl. The captain laughed. "That pearl belongs to me now. You'll have to fight me for it." Lila knew that they were no match for the captain in a fight, but she also knew that she couldn't let him keep the pearl. She took a deep breath and prepared to make a stand. But just as the captain was about to attack, there was a sudden commotion outside the cabin. The sound of shouting and splashing water filled the air. Lila and the mermaid exchanged a confused look, but before they could react, there was a loud crash and the door to the cabin burst open. In the doorway stood a group of angry villagers, brandishing makeshift weapons and looking more than a little intimidating. The captain hesitated for a moment, then made a run for it, jumping out of the window and diving into the water below. Lila and the mermaid were left standing in the cabin, holding the stolen pearl. "Let's go home," said Lila, relieved and exhausted all at once. As they made their way back to the village, Lila couldn't help but feel proud of herself. She had managed to retrieve the pearl, and she had protected the mermaid from harm. But she also knew that their adventures were far from over. There were still many challenges and dangers ahead, and she was determined to face them all head-on. Chapter 8. A Mysterious Visitor. Days had passed since Lila and the mermaid had retrieved the stolen pearl, and life in the village had returned to its usual pace. Lila had resumed her duties as a fishmonger, and the mermaid had resumed her secret visits to the shore. But one evening, as Lila was closing up her stall, she noticed a stranger watching her from the edge of the market. He was a tall man with dark hair and a serious expression. Lila had never seen him before, and something about him made her feel uneasy. She quickly finished packing up her stall and began walking towards her home, trying to shake off the feeling of unease. But as she turned a corner, she found the stranger standing in her path. "Can I help you?" she asked, trying to sound confident. The man didn't say anything for a moment. He simply looked at her with a curious expression. "You're Lila, right?" he finally asked. Lila nodded warily. "Yes, that's me. Do I know you?" The man shook his head. "No, we've never met. My name is Liam. I've come here with a message for you." Lila raised an eyebrow, intrigued despite her unease. "A message? From whom?" Liam hesitated for a moment before answering. "From someone who knows about your adventures with the mermaid." Lila's heart skipped a beat. She knew that their secret was a dangerous one, and the thought of someone else knowing about it made her feel sick. "Who are you working for?" she demanded. "Is this some kind of trap?" Liam held up his hands in a gesture of peace. "No, I'm not working for anyone. I'm just a messenger, and I promise you, this is not a trap." Lila didn't know what to believe, but something in Liam's eyes made her think that he was telling the truth. "Okay," she said finally. "What's the message?" Liam leaned in close, his voice low. "Meet me at the docks tomorrow at midnight. Come alone, and bring the mermaid with you." Before Lila could ask any more questions, Liam turned and disappeared into the night. Lila stood there for a moment, trying to process what had just happened. She didn't know if she could trust Liam, but the thought of someone else knowing about the mermaid was too frightening to ignore. She made up her mind to go to the docks the next night, but she knew that she had to be careful. The mermaid was too precious to risk, and Lila would do anything to protect her. Chapter 9. A Treacherous Plan. The next day, Lila spent most of her time trying to figure out who Liam was and what he wanted. She didn't trust him, but the thought of someone else knowing about the mermaid was too frightening to ignore. As the day wore on, Lila became more and more anxious. She didn't know what to expect at the docks that night, and the thought of putting the mermaid in danger made her feel sick. But she couldn't back out now. She had to find out what Liam wanted, and she had to protect the mermaid at all costs. As the sun began to set, Lila made her way to the shore. She found the mermaid waiting for her, her long hair shimmering in the fading light. "Lila," the mermaid said, swimming closer. "What's wrong? You seem troubled." Lila took a deep breath. "We need to talk. I was approached by a stranger last night. He knows about our adventures together and he wants to meet us at the docks tonight." The mermaid's eyes widened with fear. "Who is he? What does he want?" Lila shook her head. "I don't know, but I have a bad feeling about this. We need to be careful." The mermaid nodded in agreement. "I will come with you, Lila. We will face this together." Lila felt a sense of relief. The mermaid was her closest ally, and she knew that they could face anything as long as they were together. As the night fell, Lila and the mermaid made their way to the docks. Liam was waiting for them, leaning against a stack of crates with a small, mysterious smile on his face. "Lila," he said, nodding in greeting, "and the mermaid. It's good to see you both." "What do you want?" Lila demanded, her voice shaking slightly. Liam held up his hands in a gesture of peace. "I come in peace, Lila. I have a proposition for you." Lila narrowed her eyes. "What kind of proposition?" Liam leaned in closer, his voice low. "I know about the mermaid's pearl, and I know that it's valuable. Very valuable." Lila's heart began to race. She didn't like where this was going. "What do you want?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Liam's smile widened. "I want the pearl, Lila, and I'm willing to pay a very high price for it." Lila felt a sense of betrayal. Liam had been sent to lure them into a trap, and she had fallen for it. She didn't know how she was going to get out of this, but she knew that she had to protect the mermaid at all costs. "I'm sorry, Liam," she said, her voice steady, "but we're not interested. The pearl is not for sale." Chapter 9. A Treacherous Plan. The next day, Lila spent most of her time trying to figure out who Liam was and what he wanted. She didn't trust him, but the thought of someone else knowing about the mermaid was too frightening to ignore. As the day wore on, Lila became more and more anxious. She didn't know what to expect at the docks that night, and the thought of putting the mermaid in danger made her feel sick. But she couldn't back out now. She had to find out what Liam wanted, and she had to protect the mermaid at all costs. As the sun began to set, Lila made her way to the shore. She found the mermaid waiting for her, her long hair shimmering in the fading light. "Lila," the mermaid said, swimming closer. "What's wrong? You seem troubled." Lila took a deep breath. "We need to talk. I was approached by a stranger last night. He knows about our adventures together and he wants to meet us at the docks tonight." The mermaid's eyes widened with fear. "Who is he? What does he want?" Lila shook her head. "I don't know, but I have a bad feeling about this. We need to be careful." The mermaid nodded in agreement. "I will come with you, Lila. We will face this together." Lila felt a sense of relief. The mermaid was her closest ally, and she knew that they could face anything as long as they were together. As the night fell, Lila and the mermaid made their way to the docks. Liam was waiting for them, leaning against a stack of crates with a small, mysterious smile on his face. "Lila," he said, nodding in greeting, "and the mermaid. It's good to see you both." "What do you want?" Lila demanded, her voice shaking slightly. Liam held up his hands in a gesture of peace. "I come in peace, Lila. I have a proposition for you." Lila narrowed her eyes. "What kind of proposition?" Liam leaned in closer, his voice low. "I know about the mermaid's pearl, and I know that it's valuable, very valuable." Lila's heart began to race. She didn't like where this was going. "What do you want?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Liam's smile widened. "I want the pearl, Lila, and I'm willing to pay a very high price for it." Lila felt a sense of betrayal. Liam had been sent to lure them into a trap, and she had fallen for it. She didn't know how she was going to get out of this, but she knew that she had to protect the mermaid at all costs. "I'm sorry, Liam," she said, her voice steady, "but we're not interested. The pearl is not for sale." Liam's expression darkened. "I'm afraid you don't have a choice, Lila. You see, I have friends, very powerful friends, and they're not going to be happy if I return without the pearl." Lila felt a sense of dread wash over her. Liam was more dangerous than she had realized. "What are you going to do?" she asked, her voice shaking. Liam's smile turned sinister. "I'm afraid you're going to have to come with me, Lila, and the mermaid, of course. My friends are very interested in meeting her." Lila felt her blood run cold. She knew that they were in grave danger, but she wasn't going to give up without a fight. "No." Chapter 10. The Deal. After a long and treacherous journey, the mermaid finally reached the entrance to the underwater kingdom. She swam through the glittering gates and made her way to the throne room, where the Sea King sat on his throne, surrounded by his council of advisors. "Your Majesty," the mermaid began, "I have come to offer you a deal." The Sea King looked at her with interest. "Go on," he said. "I have a precious pearl that I am willing to give to you in exchange for the potion that will make me human," the mermaid said. The Sea King leaned forward. "That is a tempting offer," he said. "But why do you want to become human?" "I have fallen in love with a human prince," the mermaid said, "and I want to be with him." The Sea King sighed. "Love is a powerful thing," he said. "Very well, I accept your deal. But know this, once you become human, you can never return to the sea." "I understand," the mermaid said. "I am willing to accept the consequences of my choice." The Sea King nodded and called for his chief alchemist. The alchemist appeared and took the pearl from the mermaid, examining it carefully. "This is a rare and valuable pearl," the alchemist said. "It will make a fine addition to my collection." The mermaid watched anxiously as the alchemist mixed together the potion that would make her human. Finally, the potion was ready, and the Sea King handed it to the mermaid.
"Drink this, and you will become human,"
he said. The mermaid took the potion and drank it down in one gulp. Immediately, she felt a strange sensation come over her. Her tail disappeared, and 2 legs sprouted in its place. She felt her lungs expand, and she gasped for breath as she took her first breath of air. "I'm human!" she exclaimed, feeling a surge of excitement and fear at the same time.
"Remember, you can never return to the sea,"
the Sea King reminded her. "I understand," the mermaid said. "Thank you for your help." With that, she turned and swam to the surface, ready to begin her new life as a human. Chapter 11. The Human World. The mermaid emerged from the water, feeling the warmth of the sun on her skin and the sand beneath her feet. She looked down at her legs, marveling at their new form. It felt strange to be standing upright, but she was determined to adapt to her new life. As she walked along the beach, she noticed a group of humans playing in the surf. She watched them with fascination, amazed at how effortlessly they moved through the water. She longed to join them, but she knew that she couldn't risk being seen by anyone who might recognize her as a mermaid. She wandered through the town, taking in the sights and sounds of the human world. Everything was so different from what she was used to in the sea. The buildings were tall and made of stone and wood. The streets were busy with people and carts, and the air was filled with strange smells and noises. As she walked, she caught sight of a familiar figure in the distance. It was the prince she had saved from drowning, and he was walking with a group of his friends. The mermaid's heart raced as she approached him. "Excuse me?" she said shyly, tapping him on the shoulder. The prince turned around and was surprised to see the mermaid standing before him. "You?" he exclaimed. "I thought I would never see you again." The mermaid smiled nervously. "I have come to thank you for saving my life," she said. The prince looked at her with confusion. "But how did you survive? I thought for sure that you drowned." The mermaid hesitated, not wanting to reveal her true identity. I managed to swim to shore," she said. The prince nodded, still looking skeptical. "Well, I'm glad to see that you're okay," he said. "Can I help you with anything?" The mermaid hesitated, wondering if she should tell him the truth about who she was, but she knew that it was too risky. "No, thank you," she said. "I just wanted to express my gratitude." With that, she turned and walked away, feeling a pang of sadness in her heart. She knew that she could never be with the prince, not as a mermaid or as a human. Their worlds were too different, and he would never accept her if he knew the truth. As she walked back to the beach, she resolved to make the best of her new life as a human. She would have to learn how to live in this strange and unfamiliar world, but she was determined to do so. And maybe, just maybe, she would find a way to be happy in her new form. Chapter 12. A New Home. The mermaid had been living among the humans for several months now, and she had begun to adjust to her new life. She had found work as a seamstress, using her skills from her underwater life to create beautiful clothing for the people in town. She had also found a small cottage to live in, just outside of town. It was a cozy little place, with a thatched roof and a garden filled with colorful flowers. She had decorated it with shells and driftwood, and it felt like a little piece of the ocean had come with her. But despite her new life, the mermaid still longed for the sea. She missed the sound of the waves and the feel of the salt water on her skin. So one day, she decided to take a walk along the beach. As she walked, she noticed a group of children playing in the sand. They were building sand castles and chasing each other around, laughing and shouting with glee. The mermaid smiled at the sight, feeling a twinge of sadness in her heart. She had never been able to play like that when she was a mermaid. As she continued walking, she noticed something glinting in the sand. Curious, she went over to investigate and saw that it was a beautiful, shimmering pearl. She picked it up and held it in her hand, marveling at its beauty. Suddenly, she heard a voice behind her. "That's a beautiful pearl you have there," the voice said. The mermaid turned around to see a handsome man standing behind her. He had deep blue eyes and a kind smile. "It quote S dot 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 IT quote S not mine," the mermaid stammered. "I just found it on the beach." The man nodded.
Well, it's yours now,
He said, holding out his hand.
I'm a jeweler, and I can see that it's a valuable gem. You should keep it safe.
The mermaid hesitated, unsure of what to do. She knew that the pearl was valuable, but she didn't want to be tied down by material possessions. But then she thought of her cottage and how she could use the money from selling the pearl to fix it up and make it even more beautiful. With a nod, she handed the pearl to the man. "Thank you," she said gratefully. The man smiled.
It's my pleasure,
He said.
Maybe I'll see you around town sometime.
The mermaid smiled, feeling a flutter in her heart. "Maybe," she said. As she walked back to her cottage, she couldn't stop thinking about the man. She knew that it was silly to dream of a human relationship, but she couldn't help it. For the first time since she had become human, she felt a glimmer of hope that she could find happiness in this new world. Chapter 13. A Dangerous Encounter. The mermaid had been living in her cottage for several weeks now, and she had been busy making it her own. She had added a few more decorations, including a painting of the ocean that she had created herself. She had also started a small garden outside, planting herbs and flowers that reminded her of the sea. One evening, as she was sitting outside admiring her handiwork, she heard a rustling in the bushes. At first, she thought it might be a small animal, but then she saw a pair of glowing eyes staring at her from the darkness. She stood up, her heart racing with fear. "Who's there?" she called out, trying to sound brave. Suddenly, a large, menacing figure emerged from the bushes. It was a bandit, with a wild look in his eyes and a sword in his hand. "Give me all your valuables," he snarled, advancing towards her. The mermaid knew that she was in danger. She had heard stories of bandits who roamed the countryside, preying on unsuspecting travelers and stealing their belongings. But she refused to let this man take what was hers. With a sudden burst of courage, she stood her ground. "I have nothing of value," she said firmly. "Please, just leave me alone." The bandit laughed, his eyes glinting in the moonlight.
Don't lie to me, girl, he said. I can see that you have a nice little cottage here. I'm sure there's something worth taking inside.
The mermaid shook her head. "I have nothing that you would want," she said, her voice trembling slightly. The bandit raised his sword, ready to strike. The mermaid closed her eyes, bracing herself for the blow. But then, she heard a shout from behind her. "Leave her alone!" She opened her eyes to see the jeweler from town standing a few feet away, brandishing a large stick. The bandit hesitated, unsure of whether to attack or flee. But then he heard a group of villagers approaching from the distance, alerted by the commotion. Realizing that he was outnumbered, the bandit turned and ran back into the woods. The mermaid breathed a sigh of relief, her heart still pounding in her chest. She turned to the jeweler, her eyes filled with gratitude. "Thank you," she said, her voice trembling with emotion. "You saved my life." The jeweler smiled, looking at her with a mix of admiration and concern. "Are you all right?" he asked. The mermaid nodded, feeling a sense of connection with this kind-hearted man. She realized that she had been wrong to dismiss the possibility of a human relationship, and that perhaps she had found a true friend in this world after all. Chapter 14. A New Life. After the encounter with the bandit, the mermaid knew that she couldn't stay in her cottage forever. She needed to be around people, to make connections and build a new life for herself. She decided to visit the village, hoping to make some friends and perhaps even find a way to communicate with the humans. She donned a simple dress that she had made from a scrap of fabric and walked towards the village with trepidation. As she entered the bustling market square, she was struck by the noise and activity all around her. Merchants called out their wares, children played in the streets, and people bustled about their daily business. At first, the mermaid felt overwhelmed and out of place. She didn't know how to approach anyone or start a conversation. But then, she saw the jeweler from the night of the bandit attack, and her heart lifted. She walked up to him, feeling a surge of gratitude and affection. "Hello," she said, smiling shyly. "I wanted to thank you again for saving my life." The jeweler smiled warmly. "Of course," he said. "I'm just glad that you're all right. What brings you here today?" The mermaid hesitated, unsure of how to explain her situation, but then she took a deep breath and began to speak. "I know that I'm different," she said, "but I want to be a part of this world. I want to make friends and learn how to communicate with humans. Is there any way that you can help me?" The jeweler looked at her with empathy and understanding. "I'll do what I can," he said, "but it won't be easy. Humans can be difficult to understand, even for other humans. But I'll be here to support you, and I'm sure that there are others who will be willing to help as well." Over the next few weeks, the mermaid began to make connections in the village. She met the baker, who gave her a job helping to make bread. She met the town historian, who showed her how to read and write in human language, and she even met a kind-hearted woman who had experience teaching children and who offered to help her learn to speak. Slowly but surely, the mermaid began to adapt to her new life. She learned how to communicate with the humans, and she made friends who accepted her for who she was. And although she missed the ocean and her underwater home, she knew that she had found a new home on land. As she looked out over the village from her cottage window, the mermaid felt a sense of peace and contentment that she had never felt before. She knew that she had a long journey ahead of her, but she was ready for whatever lay ahead. For she had discovered that the most important thing in life was not where you came from or what you looked like, but who you chose to be. And she had chosen to be a part of this world and to make a life for herself among the humans. As she looked out over the village from her cottage window, the mermaid felt a sense of peace and contentment that she had never felt before. She knew that she had a long journey ahead of her, but she was ready for whatever lay ahead. For she had discovered that the most important thing in life was not where you came from or what you looked like, but who you chose to be. And she had chosen to be a part of this world and to make a life for herself among the humans. Chapter 15. The Final Confrontation. As the sun began to rise over the ocean, the mermaid and the sea witch stood facing each other on opposite sides of the underwater cave. The mermaid held the trident firmly in her hands, ready to defend herself and her kingdom. The sea witch let out a wicked laugh. "You think you can defeat me with that trident? You are no match for my powers," she sneered. The mermaid didn't flinch. "I may not be as powerful as you, but I have something you don't have, the love and support of my people." The sea witch scoffed. "Love and support? That won't help you now." She raised her staff and a wave of dark energy shot towards the mermaid. The mermaid raised the trident and deflected the attack. She felt a surge of energy coursing through her body, as if the trident was empowering her. The sea witch was taken aback. "What is this? How are you doing this?" The mermaid smiled. "This trident was forged by the most skilled blacksmiths in the kingdom. It has the power to amplify the wielder's magic." The sea witch growled in frustration. She knew she had underestimated the mermaid and her people, but she wasn't going to give up that easily. She raised her staff again and summoned a powerful whirlpool, sucking in everything in its path. The mermaid tried to swim away, but the force of the whirlpool was too strong. She held on to the trident, hoping it would help her withstand the current. Just when she thought she was going to be sucked into the abyss, a beam of light shone through the water, illuminating the cave. The sea witch recoiled in horror, shielding her eyes. The mermaid saw her opportunity and charged towards the sea witch, trident in hand. She plunged the trident into the sea witch's chest, and a blinding light erupted from the wound. The sea witch let out a blood-curdling scream as she disintegrated into a pile of seaweed. The whirlpool dissipated, and the cave fell silent. The mermaid looked around, her heart pounding in her chest. She had done it. She had saved her kingdom from the clutches of the sea witch. As she swam back to the surface, she felt a sense of pride and gratitude towards her people. They had fought with her every step of the way, and together they had overcome their greatest foe. When she broke the surface, the mermaid was greeted with cheers and applause from the shore. Her people had gathered to witness the final battle, and they were overjoyed to see their queen emerge victorious. From that day on, the mermaid ruled her kingdom with wisdom and compassion. She knew that her people's love and support were the true sources of her power, and she vowed to protect them at all costs. And as for the trident, it remained a symbol of hope and strength, a reminder of the mermaid's bravery and the triumph of good over evil. The sea witch growled in frustration. She knew she had underestimated the mermaid and her people, but she wasn't going to give up that easily. She raised her staff again and summoned a powerful whirlpool, sucking in everything in its path. The mermaid tried to swim away, but the force of the whirlpool was too strong. She held on to the trident, hoping it would help her withstand the current. Just when she thought she was going to be sucked into the abyss, a beam of light shone through the water, illuminating the cave. The sea witch recoiled in horror, shielding her eyes. The mermaid saw her opportunity and charged towards the sea witch, trident in hand. She plunged the trident into the sea witch's chest, and a blinding light erupted from the wound. The sea witch let out a blood-curdling scream as she disintegrated into a pile of seaweed. The whirlpool dissipated, and the cave fell silent. The mermaid looked around, her heart pounding in her chest. She had done it. She had saved her kingdom from the clutches of the sea witch. As she swam back to the surface, she felt a sense of pride and gratitude towards her people. They had fought with her every step of the way, and together they had overcome their greatest foe. When she broke the surface, the mermaid was greeted with cheers and applause from the shore. Her people had gathered to witness the final battle, and they were overjoyed to see their queen emerge victorious. From that day on, the mermaid ruled her kingdom with wisdom and compassion. She knew that her people's love and support were the true sources of her power, and she vowed to protect them at all costs. And as for the trident, it remained a symbol of hope and strength, a reminder of the mermaid's bravery and the triumph of good over evil.